What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you with the first solo podcast in quite some time, but we've had some delays in trying to pin down the final three 2024-2025 NBA season look-aheads. Rest assured they will be up by opening night. As of now, at least, that's how it's scheduled. But since it's been like 4 or 5 days since we put up a full episode, I figured that it would make some sense to just do a reaction here. So we're going to go through a Bleacher Report article by Andy Bailey where he listed one ambitious trade target for every team. Interesting time of year to do this. Pretty shocking, too. We're never asked to really write trade stuff at Bleacher Report, so that's a nice little departure from the typical content requests that we have the right to refuse, of course. So we're going to go through it. I have not looked at it, so I'm very interested to see who he listed for which teams. And I think with that, the only thing that I can remind you is go check out all our season previews, look aheads. We've done 27 of them so far with the final 3 to come. And if you've not already, subscribe, hit that sub button on YouTube, turn on post notifications, help really share our content, comment on stuff like help the algo love us back. I see you regular commenters and algo boosters. I really appreciate you. Do that on our shorts too. There are a couple people that have been doing it on our shorts, but get in there, really flood it, help that algo show us some love as we continue to grow. With that, if you're new around these parts, you've made it through the first 90 seconds. Let's get to me reacting to one ambitious trade target for every NBA team entering the 2024-2025 regular season. Okay, here we are. So as a reminder, I've not gone through these in advance. I did see the cover, though, and it had Rob Pelinka and JJ Redick on it. So I assume, this is bold, that the Lakers are going to be on this list of every NBA team. I'm a little bit surprised, but I guess that's how it's just going to shake out. We begin alphabetically. That's on to the Atlanta Hawks. Michael Porter Jr. This is interesting right out of the gate. I see the fit. Someone with size who's going to space the floor. And aside from, they have Trae Young, they have Bogey, so they have some caps lock shooters. But when you look at the front court, Jalen Johnson, a little bit of a shaky shooter. They're bigs. I mean, Onyeka Okongwu's dabbled in it. Clint Capella, not really. Larry Nance Jr., kind of lower volume. I could see it, them wanting him, his skill set. In terms of ambitious, he's owed 3 years and 100 plus million left on his deal. I find it hard to believe that the Hawks would pay him and Jalen Johnson with his extension coming up, and Trae Young, who has, I think, 3 years left on his deal, 2 of which will come before his player option. I mean, what does the package look like at that point? Denver might want to shed that payroll, and I'm sure they'd be interested in something built around, I guess, DeAndre Hunter and Bogdanovich. Is that a trade that makes the Hawks better, though? Don't hate the fit, just find it implausible when you're looking at the finances of it all. The Boston Celtics, Kevin Love, anyone's kind of ambitious for the Celtics. They're a second apron team. So I don't want to get too into the weeds with it, but they just can't take back more money than they receive and they can't aggregate players. And so basically anyone is going to be an ambitious trade target for them. I like Kevin Love's fit. Like, he preserves the 5 out. And if you're worried that Kristaps Porzingis isn't going to be healthy, you can use Jaden Springer's salary. I think will match up with his fairly nicely. But at that point, it's sort of like, oh, so you just don't, I guess, KP, do you think he's going to miss more time as Al Horford regressed at the age of 38? I think I'd rather see them, if they're going to trade for anyone, and if it's just going to cost you Jaden Springer, yeah, you don't care. But is this then an indictment of how you feel about Neemias Queta or Luke Cornett, Xavier Tillman? You just have all those guys on the roster already. I'd probably rather see you go with like a secondary playmaker off the bench or just another type of wing if you're going to do anything at all. But again, any target for the Celtics is pretty. You could use Peyton Pritchard, I guess, to get Love as well. But who else is Miami sending back in that deal? They have their own apron concerns too. So that makes it like this would have to be a 3-team scenario, most likely, just to get Kevin Love to Boston. So definitely ambitious. The Brooklyn Nets, Fred VanVleet. Okay. All right. What is going on? What's the logic here? So he's making a bunch of money. He's basically an expiring contract because of his team option. So I don't necessarily think Houston would be looking to move him, even if they believe in Amen Thompson and Şengün and Reed Shepherd as the drivers of their offense. Jalen Green there, of course. I don't see the logic for Brooklyn to get someone this good when they've opened a 2-year window in which they should be really bad. You have Ben Simmons' expiring salary. You have some other money you can include in there to make the math work if you need to. And you might not need to. They probably come pretty close. I mean, as a long-term value play for Brooklyn, if you don't believe he's going to ruin your tank and chance at having one of those top four lottery odds ones, Sure, just to have that asset preserved but, like, what are you giving Houston, like, back for this? I mean, and do they have I don't know, and they don't have they don't care now if you're good because they gave up your first round pick, so there is that, but they have these grand cap space plans in 2025, and as of right now, unless you really believe that Amin Thompson, Reed Shepherd, and Şengün are kind of the faces of the offense moving forward, they might prefer to have the option of bringing Van Fleet back or getting off his numbers so that they can have a ton of flexibility over the summer. Again, the Nets can send back the requisite number of expiring contracts if Houston wants. I don't love the fit there. Very interesting though. I like the boldness of that. Charlotte Hornets, Jared Allen. So we're just out of the Mark Williams business at that point. From Cleveland's perspective, you could see a situation where they break up the Mobley Allen pairing. His extension that he signed will allow him to be traded January 31st. So he could be moved. A package. What does that package look like, though? I guess we're talking Miles Bridges as a starter. And I mean, like, that could just be like, that's the basis of the package. Are you giving up Mark Williams in that scenario? And Cleveland's doing him as a backup to Evan Mobley. That's something that could potentially work. I don't know why Charlotte, if it's really only going to cost you, I'll frame it this way. If it's going to cost you Miles Bridges, I might just consider it because I would believe that Jared Allen could be more of a mainstay alongside Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball moving forward, and even Tijon Talon, then Miles Bridges. But if it's going to cost you first round equity, I don't know if I get queasy. If it's Miles Bridges and Mark Williams, I might do it if I'm Charlotte. But it's also it would be a weird move if they're not hell bent on winning this season. But again, Allen's under contract and he's young enough that you could view him as okay. He comes in, we're still not going to be great. We had another lottery pick to Salon and LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller really get things humming. I like this one. It's all about cost as it is with everybody else. The Bulls, Rui Hachimura. I don't know what the Bulls are doing. Sure, what is like? Are we just assuming? We'll come at it from this perspective, and I don't know what he wrote to justify it that they want to get rid of Zach LaVine. And so it's what's the best return you can get for Zach LaVine. In that case, I'd probably list like a Lakers like distant first round pick, the ones far out that they could trade. Or maybe I'd want expiring money, but Rui, sure. I mean, you would have him and Patrick Williams on the roster, maybe have some nice size on the perimeter. I don't hate it. If this is more about just, hey, let's get off of Zach LaVine's money and we have more needs to fill in kind of the 3, 4, 5 area than the 1 and 2 right now, I totally completely get that. Not inspiring, but the Bulls' direction is not inspiring. I understand the logic here. I like this one too. That's a really good suggestion. The Cavs, Trey Murphy. Shit. Pelicans fans are going to be pissed if they haven't seen this already. Yes, for the Cavs, yes. Who do you want? I might even, if we're talking, do you want Darius Garland? You wouldn't if you're New Orleans because you have DeJounte Murray. I assume this is kind of a Jared Allen-centric proposal where it's what other money are you taking back, though, from New Orleans? That gets weird because New Orleans, when you're talking about throw-in money, they only have basically mega deals. Like Trey Murphy and Jordan Hawkins is not going to get you to the money necessary to bring back Jared Allen. You have to include one of CJ McCollum or Brandon Ingram in that. The idea of them giving up now, and if you're going to trade Trey Murphy for a big, my assumption would then be because Allen's relatively cost effective moving forward, $30 million a year. But again, it's relative to the cap going up. Not a bad deal at all. If you're going to trade Trey Murphy for Jared Allen, who is more important to you moving forward? Is it CJ McCollum or is it Brandon Ingram? Just the youth and the overall upside, but just the age and the overall upside. It's probably Brandon Ingram, but you're losing CJ McCollum, who at this point is probably your second highest volume 3-point shooter behind Murphy. So there has to be a bunch of moving parts to this deal where I think you would have to look at Jared Allen. I'm off cuff right now. It'd have to be Jared Allen, Max Strus for Trey Murphy plus big salary X. And I don't know that Cleveland's going to want, I don't even know if they would want Brandon Ingram, if we're being honest. And then you still run into the problem of paying Murphy and Brandon Ingram, which is the problem that New Orleans is currently grappling with. That's tough. I mean, if you're the Cavs and you can trade you're probably the team that would need to give up. I don't know, but if it's Jared Allen and Strus is kind of the basis, and then you probably have to throw some filler salary in there. Maybe is there a Jalen Tyson? Like, does Jalen Tyson need to go out to New Orleans in this? But if the basis of the package is you have Trey Murphy and Brandon Ingram. Because I honestly, how else are you getting there? Like New Orleans isn't just going to trade Trey Murphy for a pick and Jalen Tyson. So if you're bringing back Murphy and Ingram, because I don't see why the Cavs would want McCollum when you have Garland and Mitchell, that's a tough one. I love Trey Murphy's fit in Cleveland. I just struggle. I can't even come with a package to get him there. It'd be Jared Allen centric, but even fleshing that out becomes a little difficult. The Dallas Mavericks, Kenrich Williams, build the statue outside of OKC for Kenrich Williams. This one's interesting too. I like it a lot. It's fairly ambitious in the sense that the Mavs don't have a ton of stuff with which they could trade, but Williams probably is not as important to OKC. He was banged up last year, not as big a part of the rotation. But if you're the Mavs and you're kind of just looking to add that, continue with the versatile front court element and to have him and PJ Washington and Najee Marshall in the same front court together, if you want to downsize, like play without a big, without Gafford, without Lively, without a Kleba, that's a look you could go to. Williams can also be moved around the positional spectrum, some 4, some 3 stuff. I like that for the Mavericks. That's a good one. I'd be curious to see what the package is, but OKC might be willing to move him now more than ever, just given the makeup of its roster. The Denver Nuggets have Cody Martin. Anyone who listens to this podcast knows I've been trying to get Cody Martin, 1, healthy, and I haven't been doing a very good job of that, apparently, and 2, onto a really good team. I will settle for him just playing a crap ton of minutes for the Charlotte Hornets at this point. I would just like to remind everyone that before there was the Caleb Martin, there was Cody Martin. And it's the reason that Caleb Martin was the one that ended up outside of Charlotte. So I still value Cody Martin as a potential gap filler. There are questions with the shooting, but the connective passing, moving up and down the positional spectrum on defense, and he can handle some really tough assignments there. Do some things inside the arc as well when he's healthy, and he hasn't really been healthy in 2 or 3 years. How do we get him to Denver? Because that is a fantastic fit. Man, him alongside Nikola Jokic, holy crap. It would have to be with Zeke Najee's salary, basically. I mean, you could get into some bigger numbers if you were going to move one of your core players, but you're not doing that to get Cody Martin. The Nuggets have no second round picks, though, and you're not like, are you going to attach your 2031 first to Najee to get Cody Martin? No. So would you do, if you're Denver, a Hunter Tyson and Najee for Cody Martin? Does Charlotte have interest in Jalen Pickett when Trey Mann is there? I don't know. Is there something you could fold in there with Trey Mann coming back to Denver too? And maybe that's where they give up their first. That seems a little steep. Uh, I might consider it if it's a Tyson or Pickett plus Najee for Martin. I probably do it for Denver, but Cody Martin needs to be healthy, and that's a big flipping if at this point. The Detroit Pistons, Brandon Ingram. We solved how to get to Trey Murphy to Cleveland, is that we just rope in the Pistons. I was looking at it as strictly a 2-team scenario, and it didn't need to be that. I understand the logic here, but I'm not giving up Asar Thompson for Brandon Ingram. Maybe I would give up Ron Holland if Brandon Ingram's coming back, but are you really going to give up a top 5 pick for the right to pay Brandon Ingram? Probably not. The Pelicans don't have a need for Jaden Ivey. This is a tough fit. And so if you're going to bring, even if let's just say there's a bunch of moving parts, a bunch of different teams here involved, 3 or 4 teams, you're probably bringing Brandon Ingram in. You're going to have to pay him after paying Cade Cunningham. And I would say at least 2 of Asar Thompson, Ron Holland, and Jaden Ivey are still in town. And that's not kind of the best functional fit. That's a lot of guys who prefer to operate on the ball. I trust Asar Thompson to do the right things off the ball just because we saw enough of him last year. So that's a guy you prioritize keeping. But I would weirdly think that even if you're going to rope in other teams, so are you just not giving up any of your young players at this point? Is it kind of just like, okay, Isaiah Stewart's headed to New Orleans and we're going to build out the package that way? Is that how low New Orleans is on paying Brandon Ingram moving forward? Perhaps it gets to that point. I'm not giving up any first round picks as Detroit, that's for sure, especially for Brandon Ingram, but in general, I don't love this one. But when you're looking at teams that maybe could talk themselves into getting Brandon Ingram and could feasibly have the flexibility to help New Orleans out there, Detroit certainly pops up on that list. The Golden State Warriors, Jimmy Butler, sign me up. Him and Draymond might kill each other. That's fine. I'd watch it. That's pretty cool. How do you get him there? I guess we're building a package. This is what's tough when you're dealing with these teams, is that there's probably going to need to be a third team in there because Miami can't take back more money than it is sending out as of right now. So, but if you're going to build something around picks, Are you sending out Jonathan Kuminga in this deal? I guess that depends on whether he signs an extension. But Jimmy Butler has a player option. He's 35. What type of value does it take to get him out of Miami? Is this just it's a first round pick, or it's Moses Moody in salary? I like the fit though. I don't know what the package looks like, but the Warriors need a second best offensive player that is in line with other second best offensive players on contenders. Maybe Jonathan Kuminga or Brandon Podziemski gets there in time. I struggle to see them doing it in time enough for Steph's current window, let alone this season. Jimmy Butler certainly does that. He does, however, complicate your spacing. And your spacing's already, it's not super complicated. You have Buddy Hield, D'Anthony Melton can hit threes. Brandon Podziemski can hit threes, but you're going to want more volume from him. You're going to want more volume from Jonathan Kuminga and better efficiency as well. So you throw Jimmy Butler into that equation. You do it anyway for the talent play, but you almost invariably are going to lose shooting in this deal because I'm assuming, weird to say this about Andrew Wiggins, but he can be an off-ball spacer. Defenses probably don't care too much about leaving him open anymore, but he can knock down those shots and he will take them. I would still do it. I want to make that clear, but you're then, between Buddy Hield, Steph, and who's remaining, what does that requisite spacing look like? The sheer talent, though, I mean, if you're the Warriors, you're probably, I don't think the Heat would necessarily want Kuminga if they're trading Butler. I'm sure they would take him and maybe they would push for pods. They have to pay Kuminga after this year. So if you're keeping Kuminga, Draymond, and Steph, and you have Butler, and then you're keeping pods as well, I mean, you just do it for the sheer talent play. And Jimmy can create his own shot. And when he gets downhill, that rim pressure, it will open up threes that are so wide open. Draymond Green would hit them. Kevon Looney could hit them. He's shooting threes now, apparently. I fave it. I like Jimmy Butler on Golden State. I really just want to see Steph's title win over. Oh, Kevin Durant to Houston. I fave this one as well. They have Ime Udoka, who's a coach we know Katie's always wanted to play for. I do think Woj sort of tipped his hand over the summer when he mentioned when the Rockets were acquiring Phoenix picks, they had their eye on Durant, and he sprinkles in Devin Booker. I oddly don't. I mean, for the Suns, if you can get back some of your own draft picks into the future from Phoenix, hell yeah, you do it. I don't know if I love this for Houston. Like, how good does Houston have to be to have a 35, 36-year-old Kevin Durant on their roster? He's going to come up on a new deal soon. He fits anywhere. I want to make that clear. But are you going to be contender worthy after that? Is that how you want to cash in all of your chips? I mean, maybe if it's just two of the, let's just say it's two Phoenix picks, and who are you sending out? What type of money? That gets complicated because the Rockets aren't sitting on a ton of these mega salaries. They're going to have to step ladder their way to get to Kevin Durant. I guess if you want to use, I mean, Phoenix doesn't need another guard. So you have Dylan Brooks, who can qualify as a wing, and you send him out with other salary. Is Jalen Green a part of that? And then pick. So you could probably get there using 2 or 3 players. So that's not ridiculous. I just don't know if I'm Houston, if this is the guy I want to go all in on. Katie's one of the 15 best players in NBA history, if not better than that. Still incredible, still a top 10 player for sure. Someone who will pop up on MVP ballots if he's healthy. That's tough. It's ambitious for sure, though. I think it depends on how many picks you have to include for me. Because if it's just the 2 firsts and kind of the salaries I named, you do have people to pick up Dylan Brooks' slack. So I don't hate it. But if you have to give up more than 2 first-round picks for him, and I'm Houston, I don't know that I would do it. I'd want someone more in line with my timeline, under contract for longer, but mostly the age thing. Indiana, Jeremy Grant, done. Fave it, do this. I don't know how you do it though. This is the void that Indy has. They have a path to a couple of lineups that could be really good defensively, but they still need that caps lock wing defender. No one on the roster profiles as that. Certainly not Jarris Walker at the moment. Getting to Jeremy Grant's money is tough. Would they be willing to take him on too when they just paid Siakam? Tyrese Halliburton's on a max deal. Miles Turner's contract is going to be up after the season. You just extended Nembhard. That'll kick in next year. I do it and figure it out later. Getting to the money is a little bit complicated. You'd have to use Toppin. Do you have to use Naismith in there? I'm assuming one of Jarris Walker or Benedict Matherin's included. I'm trying to keep Naismith, to be clear, at all costs, because he's still valuable to that team. I would do it though. If they're willing to pay and you can make the contracts work, that's an excellent fit. The Clippers, Zach LaVine, here we are. Inuit Dome is open, and James Harden is the only healthy star on the Clippers. Paul George is gone. Kawhi Leonard is injured. Who could have predicted this? Maybe you could have predicted Paul George and Kawhi Leonard not being healthy enough, but James Harden being on the roster. for this and one of those other two not. 18 months ago, I don't think anyone would have predicted that. Zach LaVine on the Clippers. I think at this point you're getting into they're just sending out money for him. I'm not giving up. They can trade a first round pick. I'm not giving up a first round pick if I'm the Clippers just because of how shaky the future is. I'd probably do it though, because the offense could be a little rickety. You still have James Harden. He's 35. Kawhi is injured. Zach LaVine can do more on the ball than Norman Powell. Getting the math to work, you have Norman Powell's salary of PJ Tucker's expiring contract. That could certainly help. You can't take back more money than you're sending out, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue. They could get there. I'd probably do it as long as there's no first round pick involved. And if I'm the Clippers, I'm probably doing this. Los Angeles Lakers, Trae Young. This has been a name that doesn't really surprise me. Been floating around the Lakers lore for a while. This is tough because the basis of the Lakers' best package, I'm not saying they give up all this, but it would be Dalton Connect, Bronny James, just kidding. Dalton Connect, 2 first-round picks, 3 first-round swaps, and Austin Reeves. You flesh out the money from there. If I'm getting Trae Young, I'm still trying to hold on to Austin Reeves, I think, even if you believe they're redundant. I'd rather look at sending out the other salary filler types, D'Angelo Russell for sure, maybe even Rui Hachimura. Can you make it work? Jared Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, a lot of different options that you have to keep Anthony Davis and LeBron James in place, and even Austin Reeves, and kind of shuffle the pieces around them. I still think I'd probably want Rui on the team after that, just because the squad would still be barren of real wing depth. But I would do it. I mean, if it's just the 2 firsts and the swaps and then it's plus money and even Dalton Connect, I'm doing it if I'm the Lakers. The question is that enough for the Hawks to pull the trigger when they don't own or they don't control their next 3 first round picks? I don't know if that's enough. There's merit to just saying, well, if you think he's going to leave, but he has 2 more years left on his deal before that player option. If he asks for out, maybe it's a different story. Is this what Trae Young's value is right now? Does he get as much as Mikal Bridges got for Brooklyn from the Knicks? I don't know. I ultimately don't think the Lakers' best package, even throw Reeves in there. Let's say Reeves, salary, Connect, 2 firsts, 3 swaps. Is that enough for the Hawks to part with Trae Young? I'd probably do it if I'm the Lakers because Trae Young is still really good. Does the resulting Los Angeles Lakers product insulate him enough defensively? I don't really know. I would do it though. That he elevates the Lakers ceiling with LeBron and AD for sure. The Memphis Grizzlies, Cam Johnson. I don't hate it, but so we're viewing him as their 3, or is he going to play a lot of 4 with Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 5 with Zach Edey there? I'd imagine not. I don't love that specifically, and they do have the money without giving up one of their core players to make it work. Maybe Smart is involved there. You could step ladder your way with Luke Kennard and Brandon Clark, of course, and some draft equity. So just to get some shooting and like functional shooting, even if you're not happy with Cam Johnson's percentages, he's a functional shooter who can be moved around the court a little bit better defensively than you think as well. I like this one. I would prefer more of a wing, but Cam Johnson at least comes close. To me, I view him as a combo forward, skewing more towards the 4 than someone who's kind of like a 2-3-4 positionally. But he certainly helps Memphis, especially their half court offense. He has some creation to him, but just the way he would open up the floor, I think would be a big deal for them. The Miami Heat, another Trae Young team. So I guess you're giving up in this. So if you have Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Trae Young as your resulting core, done. But we run into the same issue we did with the Lakers. You don't have a ton of first round picks to trade. I think they can give up to 2 and they have some swaps. And even if you can go up to 3, but I don't think they can. So you're looking at that plus what? What's the salary? You have Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson as your primary matching tools. If you get out of this deal without giving up Jaime Jaquez, done. We don't need to talk about it any further for the Heat. I think Trae Young, he's a good fit next to Jimmy Butler, who can work off the ball, but they do complement each other nicely. And also just with Butler potentially aging out. However, I just don't know if the Heat's best package is enough for the Hawks to say, well, we have no real incentive to get worse with our picks headed to San Antonio over the next 3 years. But the Heat are giving us so much that we're going to make this deal anyway. If Jaime Jaquez is involved, it becomes a conversation. But I don't know if it's one that the Hawks would jump on board with. Trae Young in Miami does make some sense, though. The Milwaukee Bucks, Jordan Clarkson, ambitious because the Bucks are a second apron team and they can't send out more than one player. Like they can't aggregate salaries and they can't take back more money than they receive. So I don't even know off rip if Bobby Portis makes more than Jordan Clarkson. He might. And if he does, so you're looking at kind of a straight up deal there. I don't know why Utah's doing that. You could include some seconds, I suppose, but like really greasing the wheels of this package becomes kind of a chore, which is to go through all those hoops just to wind up with Jordan Clarkson. Probably like he's at 13.4 million this year. And Jordan Clarkson, I know he's on that this declining contract. What is he actually on though for this season? 14.2. So that's, you can't even get him for Bobby Portis straight up. And you can't aggregate salaries unless you're going to wind up below the apron. That's ambitious because we're talking at that point that you're going to have to give up. Oh wait, no, he's at 14.1. Are we there? We're still not there. Bobby Portis is at 12.6 with a player. Yeah, no. So this is ambitious. Are you going to get Jordan Clarkson as kind of like a Brook for compensation for Brook Lopez or Chris Middleton and part of this bigger deal? I get what you're doing here by giving the Bucks more shot creation. I probably, the hoops they would have to jump through though to make this work. I'm not doing it. I don't love it anymore. They had an easier path there last season. Timberwolves, Jeremy Grant. That's interesting. Jeremy Grant as what? I'm assuming you're using Randall. But then again, you can't aggregate salaries here. So who is does Andy mention who he would be sending out? That's okay. Randall's ball dominance a tricky fit, but you can't, that's not going to work straight up though. And the Timberwolves are still a second apron team. So unless you're trading, you know, Anthony Edwards or Rudy Gobert at that point, I don't see a path to making this work specifically because Julius Randle's at sub 30 million and Jeremy Grant's north of 30 million. So we're just a straight up swap isn't going to work. So a little too ambitious here. The fit overall, if it was just instead of Julius Randle, let's say, Julius still he's a better passer by far, the better rebounder too, has more on-ball gravity on drives. Grant's more plug and play if you trust in Rob Dillingham. I just don't know if you have Jaden McDaniels there. I think you need someone with more ball skills, especially if you're going to pay him that number. The Pelicans, DeAndre Ayton. I don't hate the premise. I reject the idea that this is ambitious. I think Ayton's trade value has fallen through the floor. And while he had a very strong close to last season, and I think you could envision him being better in New Orleans, where he will have better playmakers to tee things up for him in DeJounte Murray, Zion Williamson specifically. And then also, I don't know if he'll have more room to work, but the fact that he doesn't provide a ton of rim pressure for a big is not something that will hinder the Pelicans as much because he's a good mid-range shooter and Zion Williamson is going to get to the basket anyway. So I think the fit is okay, but I don't think it's ambitious. If anything, there needs to be kind of a larger package here where what else are you getting from Portland if you're giving up Brandon Ingram as part of this deal? Because you don't want Ayton to be the primary compensation there. Although a lot of Pelicans fans have jumped aboard the let's trade Brandon Ingram for Walker Kessler, John Collins bandwagon. So maybe this does do it for them. The New York Knicks, Marcus Smart. This has been reported, that they're interested. Someone told me, yours truly, that the interest is serious. I don't get it. I am a Deuce McBride optimist, and so I could simply say you have Marcus Smart at home as a better shooter, not as talented of a passer for a fifth of the cost or whatever. We don't need to go in that territory. What hole is he filling on this team that I think needs secondary playmaking? They could use some properly sized wings coming off the bench. Smart does defend like a wing / big, so I understand the thought process there. But to get him at that point, you're going to have to use, now right now you could do Mitchell Robinson, Deuce, and then all these other, like you have Pacome Dadier, you could throw in there. So you can get there, but I'm assuming this is post-trade deadline, Precious, Robinson, and then a smaller salary for Smart. In a vacuum, that's not the worst, but what are you doing to your big man situation at that point? You have Karl Anthony Towns and Jericho Sims left. Are you getting back Santi Aldama? Can you work it so that pans out here? Maybe I like it a little bit more. I still think I'd rather the Knicks, if you're going to trade Mitch and Precious in the same package, you need to make sure that you're getting back a big. And I would prefer this. A lot of teams can say this, probably more of a wing type and someone who will not even improve, but perhaps not jeopardize your spacing. And Smart will make more sense in 5-out lineups if you're substituting him in for Josh Hart because he gets those threes up there. But is he as talented of a shooter as just Deuce McBride, let's say? You probably trust Deuce McBride's spot up jumper a little bit more at this point. I get it, and it's ambitious. I don't love it, but I don't necessarily have alternatives for the Knicks unless you want to, I'm a big Tamani Kamara guy and I'd like to see them go get him. The Oklahoma City Thunder, Trey Murphy again. Yeah. So Oklahoma City's potential two weaknesses would be, do they have enough shot creation? Because there's Shea, and then you're still kind of waiting on, all right, we have Isaiah Hartenstein, adds another dynamic there. We assume Chet and J-Dub, will improve. And then you have Aaron Wiggins off the bench, can kind of do some of it, but that's not Alex Caruso's game either. Or it would just be motion shooting to where it's you have a guy like Isaiah Joe, and you have guys who will get shots up. But Isaiah Joe's really the only one on the team, especially now that Lindy Waters is gone, will fly around and take those threes. And I think he works on defense, works hard, but he could compromise your defense at points. Trey Murphy won't necessarily do that. And there's the fact of the matter is that Trey Murphy just has a higher ceiling than a lot of the players I just mentioned. There's also some on-ball exploration that Oklahoma City could tap into, and in their spacing environment, he might be filthy. What are you overloading New Orleans with at that point? Just picks and salary? Is the deal any bigger? Or because he makes such a small salary, so you can make it work. You have Dylan Jones that you have these smaller salaries that you could send out plus a bunch of picks. But I think New Orleans is going to be looking for bodies, and you don't have any cheapo bigs. I mean, Kenrich Williams, Jay Will actually could send those out. Is that moving the needle for New Orleans? Are you expanding this to when Isaiah Hartenstein is trade eligible and it's Hartenstein for CJ McCollum and Trey Murphy and picks are attached to there? I don't Oklahoma City's not going to be a Brandon Ingram team. I love the fit. So it's right along. It's on the ambitious spectrum properly. I just don't see a pathway to it happening. On to the Orlando Magic. Darius Garland. Yep. Right type of fit, right level of ambition. They need to juice up their offense. I don't think KCP does enough. What they have right now is definitely a vote of confidence in Suggs, in Paulo, in Franz Wagner. I don't know if that's enough. Are you going to count on Anthony Black to develop into kind of a floor general type with some diverse shot making from the perimeter? Jet Howard gives you some of the diverse shot making if you're going to play him, but not enough of the creation or the passing. Darius Garland is potentially everything. Shaky finisher around the rim, not the best defender, but Orlando has the personnel to insulate him. When you look at Cleveland and what they would want from Orlando, what do you really get in? They might want KCP once he's trade eligible. You could build packages with picks. Maybe Tristan Da Silva is thrown in there. So you could certainly get there. I don't know if Cleveland would have interest in Jonathan Isaac when Evan Mobley and Jaron Allen are there. I do think Cleveland's more likely to trade, let's say, break up the bigs than they are to break up the guards. But if Garland shakes loose, Orlando should absolutely be one of the teams that are first in line to get him. Philadelphia 76ers, Kevin Huerter. I see this. They could use the caps lock shooting. Getting to his money would require multiple salaries once KJ Martin is ready to be traded. I'm curious why Sacramento would do this. Are they going to have an interest in? I don't think any team's going to have an interest in KJ Martin Jr. specifically, but he's an expiring contract basically. Who else are you throwing in there? I'm assuming you're not giving up Caleb Martin. You do have, they're not going to want Jared McCain. Kelly Oubre Jr. has the salary for sure at $8 million, but do the Kings need a Kelly Oubre Jr.? They would be doing this strictly for the picks, or it's a 3-team trade where its picks are going somewhere and then someone else maybe is DFS going to Sacramento. I don't know. And if Dorian Finney-Smith is on the table, I'd probably prefer him for Philly just because I think they need more front court defensive help. Right now, they're very reliant on Paul George and Joel Embiid, both of whom, as we talk right now, folks, are injured. So I don't think this is ambitious enough for Philly. The Suns, Kelly Olynyk, get a stretch big in here. We're just saying that we don't want Budenholzer to have any kind of A-plus defenders on the front line. Getting to his money is he cheap enough for the Suns to use their? No, he's not cheap enough for the Suns to use their Josh Okogie human trade exception. That's not going to be something that flies. It would have to be Grayson Allen, because he makes more than Royce O'Neal, does he not? Kelly Olynyk is making, like, isn't he making? It's under the mid level, so there's that. But I think he's making like 12 or something like that this year. He is at 12.8 million, and so it has to be a straight up swap, and that means that you're sending out Grayson Allen or Yusuf Nurkic, which I would consider doing. But what is that doing to your defense? Like, honestly. So, and which team wants Nurkic? Do you then have to include picks on top of that? That's tough. It's ambitious. Anyone for the Suns is ambitious, but if you're going to skew big, it needs to be a defensive upgrade, not just someone who's going to upgrade the spacing here. So I kind of think at once this is ambitious, but it's the wrong type. It's the wrong target for the Suns to be ambitious with. We have Rui Hachimura again for the Portland Trailblazers. I don't necessarily know why this is ambitious for them. They have Denny Avdia, Tamani Kamara. They have Jeremy Grant still. I guess we're assuming for this that they're going to be trading Jeremy Grant to the Lakers. And so let's target Rui Hachimura and picks and then another salary as compensation. That's fine. I think I would probably just list the Lakers first round picks in that equation. Then Rui would work. And I mean, he's cheaper than Jeremy Grant. How much of Jeremy Grant does he replicate? As a shot creator, not for others, but for himself, maybe more than you think. But like Jeremy Grant just has years of being on a couple bad teams as proof that he can generate from scratch. Maybe you don't want to see him doing that too much. I think you can argue that Rui Hachimura's contract is just more valuable than Jeremy Grant. And so if that's how you want to frame it, fair. Grant is the better player, though. So I want Lakers first, at least one of them coming out of that deal. And if you had to identify a player as that specific package that you would want, more than Dalton Connect or even Austin Reeves, that you have Shaden Sharp and Anthony Simons and Scoot Henderson, I probably would pick Rui Hachimura. I just wonder, is it ambitious enough? Can we talk about a different team that has maybe more of a, like Jarris Walker from Indy? Maybe. You don't know. Again, you have Avdia, you have Kamara, you have some other bigs that don't shoot, but take the higher end swing on someone like a Jarris Walker if you're giving up a Jeremy Grant. I think that's the proper amount of ambitious. The Sacramento Kings with Marcus Smart. Is that ambitious and is it a good fit? Let's just say it's ambitious. He's making over $20 million. You have Kevin Huerter as part of the salary package, and Memphis could definitely talk itself into shooting. They also need wing defense, though. Are you giving up Devin Carter, the injured Devin Carter, for Smart? I wouldn't. Are you giving up a future first? I probably wouldn't either. So you're kind of just step laddering salaries there. If that's all it takes, sure. Because I think, look, you have Keon Ellis and Keegan Murray. If you add Marcus Smart, that's a lot of perimeter defensive weaponry to insulate around DeMar DeRozan and Sabonis. The Kings offense should still be very high powered, but if you're going to get rid of Huerter, who has not been great, dating back to the 2023 playoffs, I understand that. But now we're starting to get into, you have all this offensive talent. Do you have enough bankable spacing? Maybe between Ellis, Murray, and Fox, and then just around Sabonis and DeRozan. And Smart does get the shots up. I semi like this one as long as you're not giving up a first round pick or Devin Carter. That's where I would land on it. The Spurs, Jimmy Butler. This is ambitious times 5 million, probably. Do I like the fit? Jimmy Butler and Chris Paul on the same team. That's a special type of mentality. Those are two that might try to kill each other. What are you giving up? They have a bunch of first round picks. They have salaries to make it work. I'm assuming Keldon Johnson would be involved. So you're fleshing this out kind of with Keldon Johnson. Like, I guess the Heat are going to want picks, I'm assuming, if they're trading Jimmy Butler, because it would signal that they're rebuilding. So you're sending out his $48.8 million salary. That's a lot of ground to make up. San Antonio does not, there's flexibility for them via trade, but they just used up the rest of their cap space on bringing back Jalen McDaniels. You have Harrison Barnes' money if you want to match. So Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes, Zach Collins, you can get that money pretty easily, actually. Now, how many picks are you including to make that work? Then would be the question. And like, does Jeremy Sohan, does he have any value to Miami as kind of a prospect? If he does, doesn't make the matching any easier, but it does bode well for your trade package because you could go Keldon Johnson and Harrison Barnes brings you to 37 plus Sohan. Like that probably gets you there money wise, and then just shower the Heat with picks. Maybe try and prioritize giving up. I think if I'm the Spurs, I'm trying to give up my own picks in this scenario rather than Atlanta's or Minnesota's. They have that Chicago one too. I might give that up just because the Bulls are projected to be so bad. But you catch my drift. Of all the different kind of first round picks that San Antonio owns, they have that Boston distance swap too. I'm probably like, I would give up multiple Spurs picks plus Sohan, Keldon Johnson, and Barnes for Butler. Even that might be too steep with Butler being 35 and headed towards a new contract. But if it's two firsts, protected firsts, I'm doing this. Don't necessarily love the requisite spacing or the resulting spacing, but it could, I mean, he makes them better. And like Wemby plus Vassell plus Jimmy Butler, it's a hell of a three-man combo. And you still have, I mean, what does Stephon Castle turn into in this scenario? My spicy take would be, would you consider moving Stephon Castle if it meant keeping all these other picks? You probably wouldn't. So it's ambitious, and I don't hate the fit. I would like someone who improves the spacing around Wemby a little bit more because we know Paul and Trey Jones aren't going to take or make a ton of threes. Ditto for Jimmy Butler. But just having all that secondary creation around Wemby, and then just a healthy Vassell, who I thought made some strides defensively last year, plus Butler, plus Wemby. That's defensive hellfire. Like it doesn't matter if Sohan's there or not. Now, you also could say if the Heat are willing to take back Zach Collins' money, and you can keep Harrison Barnes, that I like to trade a lot better. You would have to probably include more, if it's Sohan and two firsts, is that enough to get them to take on Keldon Johnson and Zach Collins? Would you include a third first or something smaller, a Malachi Branham or what have you, to just sweeten the package a little bit? But that's the route that makes it more appealing, because I think that the Spurs would still need some kind of offensive spacing there. Nearing the end, folks, can you feel it? We're on to the Toronto Raptors. Goga Bitadze. This is the mark of a team that has no idea which direction it's headed in. And I think that the Raptors are rebuilding, but they're interesting in the sense that they've already given out second contracts, or in Scotty Barnes' case, extension agreements. Jakob Poeltl's on his third contract. RJ Barrett's making a whole lot of money. So they're rebuilding, but they're about to be an expensive rebuild. And it feels like they are kind of constructed to react to where, okay, if they're better than expected, they will stay the course, maybe even go for upgrades like, oh, we need some more center help, and we're going to go after Goga Bitadze. Or if they're bad, then they'll just strip it down around Scotty Barnes. Everyone else can be moved around. Maybe they view Grady Dick as part of the core, and you kind of start from more square one. I don't know if I love, like, does that make Goga Bitadze ambitious? I would say no. He's not making a ton of money. If your goal is to, as the Raptors, just send out someone that has no value and get Goga Bitadze, or to get him without giving up a pick, okay, sure. But like, what is you're kind of looking at Goga Bitadze's in Davion Mitchell territory, or you could use Kelly Olynyk / Chris Boucher as like starting points, but then you might need to take back someone else from Orlando in that scenario, because Goga Bitadze is at $9 million this year. How did I miss? I didn't realize it was that much money. So yeah, you could do Chris Boucher or Kelly Olynyk. Would the Magic want? I mean, I love Chris Boucher. He's a floor spacing rim protector at his heart. So sure. I don't know if it's ambitious though, and I don't know that if you trust Bitadze's defense and you're worried about Toronto's rim protection because Jakob Poeltl has slipped a little bit, he can still be a deterrent. Sure. Ambitious though, I guess for their direction, I understand, like, they're equivocating. It's ambitious enough. I wouldn't say it's very inspiring though. The Jazz with Trae Young. Whoo! That's ambitious. They have the assets to get Atlanta to move him. That's for sure. Independent of where Atlanta's own draft picks are headed. Should they be going that route? You have Lauri Markkanen, an all-star. You've paid him. Maybe. And like, so Trae Young and is Colin Sexton going out in that deal? I'm assuming maybe both Sexton and Clarkston. They're not going to take Collins back, so you need some kind of salary matching tools here. And Trae Young is one of the like more difficult trade pieces to move because he's making over 40 million. He's at about 43 million. And so if you're Utah, the basis of just matching up the money, I mean, it's pretty easy. You get to Clarkson and Sexton, that's 32 million right there. So it's not that hard. So you're giving up both of them. Which young players then? Are you giving up Keontae George? Is that what it takes? Plus picks? I don't know if I hate it. You have to believe that, okay, you're not, I would assume you have to keep Cody Williams as part of this deal. They just don't have a ton of defense on this team, perimeter wise, to begin with. you're keeping Walker Kessler because they have Onyeka Okongwu and Clint Capella. And again, you need that baseline rim protection. I'm probably fighting to keep Taylor Hendricks as well, again, just for the defense. So if you're telling me that you have Walker Kessler, Taylor Hendricks, Cody Williams, and Trae Young, and Larry Markkinen is kind of your base, that's an interesting team. And you've probably, if you want to, you could probably keep Keontae George too. You have enough picks to make it happen. But I'm assuming the basis of a package would be the Hawks are just loading up on guards that are making a ton of money. Or there's maybe a 3-team scenario where John Collins is headed out because he takes up a bulk of the salary matching. But a lineup of Trae Young, Larry Markkinen, Cody Williams, Taylor Hendricks, and Walker Kessler. I mean, like that's a lot of size around Trae Young. Who do you view as your 2? I guess it's Lowry in that instance. So maybe that's not a lineup you're running out, but I don't hate it. You still just feel a little light then when it comes to perimeter players. You could probably work it so that you're keeping Sexton or Clarkson, but do you want to play either of them next to Trae Young? This is ambitious, not in the sense it's oddly ambitious in the sense, not that they can't get him or it'll take a lot to get him. It will, but they just have so many assets. It doesn't matter. It's ambitious in the sense of should the Jazz fucking do it? Honestly, I'd like to see what happens after they do, but my prerequisite for all of this, they probably wouldn't do it. If you are going to do it though, I need Taylor Hendricks, Walker Kessler, and Cody Williams all still in a Utah uniform just for the defensive optionality there. That's where I'm at. And those 3 plus Markkinen plus Young, it's a nice little base there. I don't know if it's the skeleton of a future contender, but ooh, the Wizards with Jaden Ivey. I don't think they need to go this route because you have Bub Carrington, who I'm a big believer in, but you'll probably want a number of guys to go do things on the ball. If we assume that Kyle Kuzma is not long for Washington, that need will increase. Here's an interesting question. You're not giving up any first-round picks as Washington for Jaden Ivey. It just doesn't make any sense. So if you're Detroit, just as the basis of a package, are you considering you're not punting on Jaden Ivey for Malcolm Brogdon, are you? I'm assuming not. If there's first-round picks involved, maybe. So I guess you're looking at, is Kyle Kuzma kind of like the outline of an offer? Maybe Washington's willing to include Keyshawn George. I wouldn't if I were them. I kind of like him. Hat tip Matt Moderno for turning me on to him before we recorded our look ahead. But then there's more moving parts that need to be involved. So, but you have Kyle Kuzma at 23.5. Don't know if I love his fit in Detroit. It could work, but him and Tobias Harris is a little weird. I don't think Washington has the juice. It would have to be something like Corey Kispert for Jaden Ivey, basically. That's the basis of an offer. Maybe you include someone or something else in there. I do like where the ambition is at here, though, where we want someone who projects as a long-term floor general. Maybe we don't believe that Bub Carrington is it. We know Jordan Poole's not it. Malcolm Brogdon certainly isn't it. If you're moving Jaden Ivey as the Pistons, I'm assuming you would want a first or a prospect equivalent of it is even worth that right now. Just based off what he's done in the NBA, maybe it's not all his fault because he's playing for Monty Williams in Monty Williams' doghouse last year. He has one of the more complicated trade values in the NBA right now. I don't know what I would give up for, because if you're telling me Washington needs to give up a first, I'm not doing it because I think that's too much. If it's a top 20, if it's that Warriors top 20 protected first, sure, go ahead, have at it. But like beyond that, would you give up Corey Kispert? I guess for the flyer, and Kispert's about to be paid, so I would consider it. And he's certainly someone who could work in Detroit, but it was a Kispert in seconds, and are you just throwing in have a Jared Butler here or something? I don't know, man. That is fascinating. That is fascinating, though. I think when we're looking at the ambitious scale, your head's in the right place, Andy. I just don't see a pathway for, but that's kind of the point. These are ambitious. It's supposed to make me think like this. Well, folks, that was an incredibly interesting exercise, especially to do it this time of year. Loved a lot of the suggestions. Wasn't crazy about all of them. Hope you enjoyed the content, though. We will have look aheads continuing to roll out along with our awards predictions. I've also set up, just as a spoiler alert, I've been asking all of our experts what their biggest storyline is for these teams. And I'm going to cobble those answers together, and it'll be one big episode. And so if you've listened to all the episodes, it's not new content, but did you remember all their answers? How do they kind of square away now that we're weeks removed from some of those being recorded? I also have a lineups one that I've been asking them. So it'll be about crunch time units and lineups they should try. That'll be a fun one. And then Grant and I will hammer out sort of what the publishing schedule will be this year. We have a lot of big plans for this podcast, for this community. If you've not already, I should have mentioned this at the top. Go ahead, join our Discord. The link's in the podcast and YouTube description if you want to be a part of the over-under competition. So you sign up and the winner will get merch item of their choice and confirmed the chance to guest host a mailbag episode. So we will get questions. You will ask them to us and you'll be on the podcast. Isn't that exciting? That's life-changing shit right there. Until next time, though, and as always, please, 1, subscribe. 2, I appreciate all of the support, as does Grant, from all of you. We love every single one of you guys. And 3, I'll catch you next time. Shout out Frank Ntilikina.